Good morning, class. I hope everybody's having a great Tuesday morning. Um, I thought I would go ahead and give you a week 6 lecture video. Um, since we're basically getting close to our 2 month mark. Week 8 would be what they consider midterm. That's when we're going to have our third essay, which would be the Respondus Lockdown Browser event that we have to do for the course. Remember, if you're taking strictly 100% online courses, you will have at least one Respondus event before the end of the semester. Uh, Now, depending on your instructor or professor, they may have multiple ones. But for us, we we only have the one, and I usually have it around midterm just because it makes life a little bit easier for folks to have it a little earlier, middle of the semester, instead of toward the end when the research papers due, and there's final exams and that type stuff going on. So we will talk a little bit about what the Respondus lockdown browser is, where you can go and get some information, because you will need to download that particular app if you plan on doing this at the comfort of your own home. Now, if it's not going to work on a tablet, it's not going to work really well on a phone, it's not going to work on an iPad. I wouldn't even try to entertain trying to get that, because it's not going to work. You need to have a laptop of some sort, and you need to have or a desktop. Make sure that you have a working webcam and a working web mic. Both of those need to be turned on during the duration of the 60 minutes that you take the exam. And make sure that you have stable internet connections. If you live in a place that, depending on if it's really windy, or if the sun is only, shining on the right side of your house, is when the internet's going to be working. You might want to think about going to your closest Coastal Pines campus, because their library or testing center will have the lockdown browser built in, and you can use their webcam and web mic and stuff and just log in as you would normally. You wouldn't have to necessarily download anything because it's already there, and just use the equipment at the college. That probably would be, especially if you don't have a really good internet connection on most days, or if you don't have a web mic or a webcam, and you don't want to go out and spend money on it, or the only thing you have is a tablet. Well, I mean, Respondus is not going to work, and you need to have Respondus. You need to be able to log into Respondus on some sort of a device to be able to complete SA3. Otherwise, you can click on it all day long, and you're never going to be able to go to the essay exam to complete it. And I know, at this point, nobody can really afford a zero, because this is a major assignment. It's a big chunk of your grade. So you want to make sure. That's why I'm giving everybody a chance. That Respondus verification that you're basically having until October 1st. And the reason why I'm doing that, one, is for you to see, and possibly me to see, if there's any problems, mainly on your end, with your computer equipment. Have you downloaded it? Are you able to get on? Did you show your student ID? Now, the ID deal is you need to show either a Coastal Pines ID or a driver's license, something that has your picture and your first and last name on, so we can see that. And then it may ask you to take a current picture to sort of compare. So we just want to make sure that whoever's behind the computer screen is the actual student, and that you're not having your brother or your grandma trying to take the test for you. So, and they may give you a few minutes where they're going to want you to do a sort of a 360 rotation of your room to make sure you don't have anything that you don't need to have, so you don't get caught getting flagged for cheating. These things do get recorded. There is a third party with Respondus that watches them. If time, sometimes I may scoot in to see what's going on. Obviously, you're not going to know that I'm there, that the other person is there, but that's the whole point. You need to have your webcam and web mic on. We need to be able to see your screen and be able to hear the stuff around. So if you can't, if you don't have the webcam on, we can't grade the exam because we don't know what's going on. So we can't see it, we can't hear it, hear you, hear sort of the background. Then you're going to risk possibly getting a 0 on this thing, and you don't want that. Make sure that you're in a room that's quiet. Make sure the room doesn't have a lot of stuff on the walls, if possible. Be careful of the jewelry and the headwear that you wear. Sometimes it will flag, if you're wearing a football or a basketball cap for whatever reason. Be careful of religious symbols, because I just don't want you to get flagged for silly things either. I mean, some things I can obviously go on there if you're wearing a Georgia Bulldog hat and they flag it for whatever reason. I can see that and move on, but it's just going to be a pain if I have to go, continue to go through each one of these videos for that purposes because of the attire. Um, as long as you're dressed, I really don't care what you wear. As long as obviously you're not going to be able to write a full essay, inside. At least I don't think inside like a jacket pocket or something. Um, but sometimes these proctors they flag for really crazy and silly situations. I wouldn't try to take this exam if you have a lot of folks coming in and out of the room. They will flag you for that. Too much noise, too many people in and out of the room, because we have caught folks cheating on math, test where they had about 4 or 5 people hiding behind a couch or underneath the table and reading answers and all that stuff. So I mean, just don't get caught up in that. Um, you know, Sometimes it will flag you if you sort of read the essay or like if you're talking to yourself about working through a particular area. I don't mind so much of that because I realize you're probably trying to read out loud and make sure things make sense. Um, as long as you don't have anybody, feeding you answers, then you should be okay. Be careful because I know sometimes the earbuds, some of y'all like to listen to music while you're writing or doing your work, and that's fine. But we've also had some folks, sort of tap into the Bluetooth and sort of, recorded themselves reading their essay and then playing it back, or having somebody, across the room somewhere down the hall speaking into another microphone and relaying the information. So just be wary about some of that stuff. Like I said, I don't want to pull up your video and there's like 17 flags for various things, because I have to go through and check those flags and make sure there's nothing suspicious going on. And that you don't want to hinder your grade or lower your grade because of something very silly like that. And again, momentarily we'll talk a little bit about what the topic is, and then I'll show you for those that are still trying to work through the whole respondus. It looks like some of y'all did that verification. And again, what I'm going to do with the verification, if you do it in time before the 1st of October, hopefully everything is working on your end. And if you want to take the respondus in the comfort of your own home, you can do that. If you can't, like I said, obviously you probably want to go to the closest Coastal Pines library. Now, the deal about that is if you're going to Coastal Pines to take this, keep in mind we're only open Monday through Thursday, usually 7:30 in the morning until 6. So we're not open Friday, Saturday, or Sunday. So that's where, the comfort of taking this at your own home, you have that ability to take it on a Friday or a Saturday at, 2 o'clock in the morning or whatever the case may be. It's just if you're having to take it elsewhere, the college for that matter, you're going to have to go by our business hours. But again, I think this particular essay topic should be fairly easy to manage within the 60 minutes. And yes, you do have 60 minutes. I mean, once you hit start, you got to type start to finish, proofread, edit, save, upload, all within that 1 hour time frame. So, if you work or whatever the case may be, I would make sure that you give yourself enough time. I would probably say, especially if you're having to travel to a campus because your stuff just isn't working, I would probably at least give myself maybe, 3 hours, time to drive there, time to drive back, and then also time to actually type if you need it. Most folks usually take about 40 minutes, 40 or 50 minutes. I'm going to know something is up because you can't have a rough draft with you. The only thing you can have while working on this particular essay is a outline of the essay and note cards. If you have specific examples and stuff that you want to use, in particular body paragraphs, you can have those on your note cards. You can have as many note cards as you want. You can, write front and back. I don't really care, as long as you don't have a pre-written rough draft. Because I want to know something up if you log into the Respondus and all of a sudden you are able to basically type a 2-page paper in 10 minutes. That's going to tell me you already had a rough draft and you just uploaded it and you didn't even actually type it from scratch, because everybody needs to type this one from scratch. So that's why I say even the fastest typers usually need about 40 or 45 minutes to complete. And it's just because you want to give yourself enough time to, one, type the essay, two, go back and proofread and, edit for grammar, spelling. You're probably going to have to type the thing in the text box that it's going to provide you. There should be spell check there. There probably won't be grammar check. And the reason, because once you get locked into that browser, it's not going to let you go anywhere on the web, and it's not going to let you pull up any, computer programs. Excuse me. So you're not really going to have to, you're not going to be able to pull up Microsoft Word, because when it locks you down, it locks you inside the screen of that particular test. So do the best you can with the MLA format, because I know you're not using Word, but you can still do your best, right? You can still have your header. You can still create double space by, hitting the enter bar a couple times. So just do your best. What I'm looking for with this particular essay is mainly big ideas. When we look at the topic here momentarily, or the instructions, you really need to probably have about 2 to 3 pages, mostly, in a 5-paragraph type format. So again, introduction, 3 body paragraphs, conclusion. It's pretty much all that you really need. You shouldn't need to use any secondary research material, meaning you don't need to really go out and have copies of journals and stuff that you want to quote. Now, if you plan on quoting and stuff, you probably want to put that stuff on how it needs to be correctly on your note cards, so you're not getting counted off for it. But you don't necessarily need the secondary material. That's going to really come into play when we start talking about essay 4, which will be really that last major essay that's going to take us to pretty much the end of the semester, which would be your research paper. And we're going to talk a lot more about that after the midterm and everything is over with. So that's why I say it's going to be to your benefit if you do have a well-written, elaborated outline on your essay, and bring some, have some note cards with you. Otherwise, because you're not going to be able to type this thing out actually on Microsoft Word. You're just going to have to type it into the text box that the program is going to provide for you. The other thing is, and we'll talk here momentarily, because again, I'm going to go through and show you where you can find information about Respondus, is that you're going to have to download the right Respondus app to your device. Like if you're using a MacBook, you're going to have to download it to that particular MacBook. If you're using Chrome, you're going to have to download the Respondus for Chrome. You can't mix and match. And if you don't download, or if you start doing the mix and matching, it's probably going to ask you for a password or some kind of access code. And I don't have the password or the access code, because if you download everything correctly and everything's working correctly on your end of your computer, it will bypass all that, which tells me and tells you that you did everything correctly. So if it's asking for an access code or a password, then you need to go back and kind of either rewatch those videos on Respondus that I'm going to show you here momentarily, or go back and reread the material that you have about Respondus. You can see a lot of this stuff too that's on Blackboard and in your syllabus, but it's not going to prompt you, or it shouldn't, if you did everything right on your end, for an access code or a password. So I say that because if you email me and tell me, hey, what's the password, or hey, can you give me the access code, you're just wasting your time and my time, because I don't have the password. I didn't make one. They tell us not to have a password or an access code, and I don't have the numbers for the access code. Um, if you have any really like troubleshooting issues with Respondus, I will show you where you can go to contact them. Because again, the only thing I basically have a little bit of control over is I upload the exam questions and I download the videos and the papers to grade. I have no control over what Respondus does, right? I don't have any control over the proctor that's watching you. I don't have any control over, the video equipment that's recording your sound and video. I don't have any control over your end of it, meaning I can't control how well your internet works or how well that webcam works or whatever the case may be. So if you have computer issues, or if you have internet issues, or if you have Blackboard issues, a lot of that's on you. And you're going to have to kind of resolve that before you take the midterm, because the whole deal is too, if you take the midterm and it cuts off for whatever reason, right? Because your computer wants to update, there's nothing I can do, because you only really have one shot, one chance. Once you hit begin, that's it. So you want to make sure everything is working and that you can do it within a 60-minute time frame. Because otherwise, if you start it and then something happens on your end, there's nothing I can do, because it's out of my hands. So make sure, like I said, I would probably go through, if you plan on doing it at home, make sure that all your updates are up to date prior to taking it. Make sure you take it where you can have time to focus, that you're not rushing because you got another class, that you got to go to a kid's baseball game, or you got to pick kids up or go to work. You want to give yourself enough time that, one, you can, actively and confidently sit down and type for at least, if you need to, 60 minutes. Now, what I would suggest, especially if you have an outline and you have your note cards right there with you, I would go ahead and see how fast you can get that essay typed up, right? Take 35, 40 minutes to type the essay. Then from 40 minutes to 50 minutes, I would probably do some proofreading and editing. And then from about 50 to 55 minutes, I would probably do the spell check and the grammar check if possible. And then that last 5 minutes, I'd go make sure that you save it correctly and then, upload it before you leave. Because again, if time runs out and you don't have a file attached, or you don't have any information in that box that they give you, then it's just going to submit something blank. And when it's blank, it's automatically a 0, because I can't grade if there's nothing there. So that's just going to give you a 0. And this is one of those things, I can't reopen it again. We can't do a redo. So that's why I have it left open. You basically have 3 weeks right now. I have it open, so you can take it earlier if you want to. But once you take it and complete it, that's it. You can't go back and say, oh, I missed this, or, it's not long enough, or I wanted to say this. So make sure that whenever you do begin it, you're ready, prepared, and can do it in 60 minutes, because whatever you turn in, that's what I'm grading. If your time runs out, like I just said, 61 minutes, there's nothing there, I can only give it a 0, because you don't have nothing there. I can't go back and reopen it. So make sure that you're saving your stuff regularly, because something is better than nothing. I'm hoping that you would have at least 5 paragraphs, but I might be able to give you a little bit of credit if you only had 2 paragraphs. It may not be, you know, a 75 essay. It could be a 55 essay at that point. But 55, even though it's still failing, is better than having a 0. Because again, each 0 that you make brings your overall semester average down 20 points for each one. So be careful of that. All right, so let's look at sort of the topic, and then we will look at where to find some of this stuff. So right now you should be able to see this. This is in your modular 3, because that should be open for you by now. And again, we sort of went over a little bit of this, you know, at least 5 paragraphs or more, whatever you think you have time. You can have an outline or note cards only. No rough draft, right? So you want to just be, you know, be prepared with that. Again, you want to use the MLA9 format as much as you can. Again, if they just give you that little white box to type on, I understand that you're not going to get the format perfectly or exactly as you would in Word, but do your best that, you know, do the best that you can. As long as I can read and understand, hey, the first paragraph is your introduction, your second paragraph is body paragraph 1, that type of stuff, you should be okay. This will take place, and I'm going to click out of here real quick just to see. It's going to take place on October 13th. Of course, it's going to be open until October 13th. So basically, you have between now and October 13th at 11:59 to turn it in. So you don't have to wait to October 13th to complete this. As long as you have your Respondus downloaded, you can take it today. You can take it tomorrow. As long as you feel confident and with, you know, with your material, you can turn it in. Now, granted, I still have some SA2s to grade. So, I mean, if we start building up these essays, it's going to take me a little bit to grade them, but you will get a grade on it. Sometimes, I mean, if you do the SA3 a little earlier, sometimes you'd get your SA3 grade back before your SA2, just because SA3 only needs to be 5 paragraphs. And really what we're doing with this particular essay is you're giving me a process analysis essay. So what does that mean? Well, think about a process you know well, something you've done repeatedly, mastered, or learned through trial and error. This could be, right, a physical task like cooking, training, or fixing something. It could be a mental routine like studying, meditating, or organizing. It could be a creative method like writing, painting, or composing. A social or emotional strategy like conflict resolution or self-motivation. So in a lot of ways, think of like maybe a manual, or think of like a lot of us now go to YouTube for how-to videos, right? Where they go through step 1, step 2, step 3, step A, step B, whatever the case may be. How to change oil in a truck or a car, how to put, you know, how to build a baby crib from scratch, just using sort of the manuals and the pictures and the tools that they give you from the box, how to cook grandma's favorite lasagna or whatever the case may be. So you have a lot of different things that you can choose from. You just want to kind of pick one and go with it. Again, you probably want to do something that you kind of know like the back of your hand, because that would probably be easier to fill out, you know, some note cards and particular outline on. Some brainstorming questions that you may want to ask yourself while you try to choose a topic is, what do people often ask you how to do? Have you developed your own way of doing something? Have you ever taught someone else this process? What does this process reveal about how you solve problems? So you want to think, you know, in a good way, a lot of folks like to do recipes, because when you think of recipes, they do a process analysis. There is a step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4. The big thing is you don't want to skip steps with this. because you don't, even though you may know whatever you're trying to explain to us, like the back of your hands, you don't want to, if it has 5 steps, you don't want to just talk about step 1 and step 2 and then automatically get to step 5 because you missed out step 3 and 4. Well, if somebody picks up your paper, they may not know how to make grandma's best lasagna without having all 5 steps out in front of them. So, or the same thing if you're changing transmission fluid in a Cadillac or something, you don't want to skip steps if the person on the other end reading this particular paper um, has never changed oil in a Cadillac, because you don't want them to go out there and purposely mess up or intentionally or unintentionally mess up their vehicle. That's why when you do a lot of these how-to or watch a lot of these how-to videos, some of them are very lengthy, some of them are very short, some of them are somewhere in the middle. But these people that are making these videos have to have a pretty solid, conscious that whatever they're showing is, truthful in a lot of ways, because they don't want to come back and have somebody like, let's say, Joe out there that watches a video at 3 o'clock in the morning of how to do something. And, the person on the other end knows it really like the back of their hand. So this person, just because they don't want to sit up here and speak about it for 10 minutes, shortens the video by 5 and skips a lot of steps. So now Joe's going to go out there barely having any sleep, let's say trying to change the oil in his truck. And because the person on the video went from step 1 to step 7 and skipped everything in between, now this person that's trying to change their own oil screws something up and it screws up their vehicle. So Joe's going to want to try to sue YouTube or sue the person that made the video because, hey, you were supposed to show me how to do this, but you didn't. So just be careful when you're writing these things out. Think of, you can think in terms of like steps of a recipe, or, steps as in, in terms of building something together, something of that nature. Just make sure that you give us all the steps. So one structure that you can follow, even though this is a 5, you want to sort of do a 5-paragraph format as much as possible. You could have more paragraphs depending on how many steps you have. So think about your steps as being your body paragraph. So one way you can go is, obviously, you can have your introduction, where you want to hook the reader, introduce the process, and with the thesis statement that hits at your unique approach. Again, your last sentence of your introduction paragraph should be one complete sentence, which is your thesis. Then body paragraphs 1, 2, and 3 probably need to be like step 1, then step 2, then step 3, and of course, if you need additional steps, step 4, step 5, until you reach your final paragraph, which would be your conclusion, right? Why this process matters to you, what it reveals about your habits or values, and end really with a strong final thought. So again, like I said, really tips for success here. You want to manage your time. When I say, spend 10 minutes planning, you're already going to have 3 weeks to plan for this thing. So you can take those 10 minutes that you would spend on planning, if I didn't give you the topic, and say that you can have an outline and note cards ahead of time. You can, put that either with 10 minutes to revise. So now basically you have 20 minutes to revise. If you are sort of not the fastest typer in the world, you can put those 10 minutes with actually writing minutes. So instead of maybe 40 minutes of writing, you would have 50 minutes of writing. You want to use your authentic and reflective voice. Don't just explain the steps. You want to explain the reasoning behind it, right? And, if you pace yourself and you start building on your outline and your note cards over the next few weeks, then this shouldn't be that big of a deal. The only difference is we're not doing a peer review on this thing. So you can't send me a draft because you don't need to have a rough draft with you. You really don't need to be using tutor.com because, again, you're not sending me a draft. You're not sending a peer a draft. So why would you send them a draft? It's basically, this is a process of teaching how well do you work under pressure? How well do you type fast, think fast? How well can you do an outline, use note cards, download certain programs, and upload stuff? I mean, it is sort of a pressure cooker, but this is sort of a lost art in English classes in a lot of ways. Because when I was taking English 1101, this is all we did was 60-minute time writings. We had 15 weeks, and guess what? We had 15 essays. Every Friday, we had 60 minutes to type something out. So, kind of be thankful that we maybe only do one of these instead of, 14 other ones. Um, but as long as you come prepared and you use your time wisely and you pace yourself during this, you should have no problems. Because again, I'm looking at big ideas more so than I'm looking at, because a lot of students say, well, are you going to grade this one like you do essay 1 or 2? And really, I grade this one a little differently because I know with essay 1 and essay 2, most of y'all have had at least 3 weeks to do that outside of class. Most of y'all had time to, if you did a peer review, to get answers back or get some questions and some responses back from your peers, hopefully. You had opportunity to send me a draft of your rough draft of essay 1 and essay 2. Some of y'all did that on time. Or, you could also use tutor.com during that time. Here, because you're only going to have the 1 hour, we're not doing the peer review, you're not sending out drafts to anybody. I'm looking at the major ideas. Like I said, does it have at least 5 paragraphs or more? Is it at least 2 pages or more? Is it actually giving steps on how to do something? That type stuff. Now, I can, I'm hoping because spell check is pretty much on every little thing that we have. You wouldn't have any misspellings. The grammar check, I will check for grammar. It is an English class. If you make a couple comma errors here or there, probably won't take off as much. But if you have, 15 comma splices, I can't ignore that. If you have 17 dangling modifiers that we're fixing to talk about, I can't ignore that. But 1 or 2, and it doesn't really disrupt the flow or the information that you provide, I can overlook some of that. So I'm looking at, organization, development, paragraphs, introduction, thesis statement, topic sentences, the steps, the process of going from step 1 to step 2. Are you using transitions? Stuff like that. So I'm hoping, and again, if you have some outline, if you have an outline that you want me to look at, or if you, have some stuff that you want to put on a note card, but you're not, you're unsure, you can always send me an email and I can look at this stuff for you before you actually start, buying the note cards and putting this stuff down and then realizing, hey, I can't really use it now. So a couple things to kind of keep in mind. Quiz 2 is due on the 28th. We will talk a little bit about, the pronouns, pronoun antecedent agreement, dangling misplaced modifiers, subject verb agreement. A lot of this stuff you've been keeping up with your OER, your course textbook. There's been information in there about that leading up to, modular 3. We will look at that particular study guide here momentarily. We also have quiz 3 that deals with punctuation. We'll probably talk a little bit more about that maybe next week because we do have a little bit of time. I mean, I know some of y'all are jumping ahead. Some of y'all are doing quiz 2 and quiz 3, and that's fine if you feel comfortable and you know what you're doing. But if you're, kind of shaky with punctuation, I probably wouldn't, I wouldn't jump ahead, especially if you don't think you're going to do too well on that quiz, because once you take it, that's it. I can't go back and, I should have waited until next week while you went over punctuation, but I didn't because I just wanted to get all these quizzes out of the way. Well, I mean, that's on you. I kind of told you if you didn't have a lot, going, working well with punctuation, you probably want to hold off taking that quiz until we talk a little bit more, because I will give you a study guide for that too as well. Okay. So again, we have the sort of the instructions for the Respondus essay. This is where you're going to click on it. And I will show you what it's going to look like probably on your end if you don't have Respondus. So let's see. Let me go to student preview and see what it shows. The other thing is you should start to see that some of your modulars are going to start closing up now. Just because we're done with 1, 2 will be closing up soon. 3 would probably be the only one that's open for a little bit. But see, if I click here and I scroll all the way down, and I want to go ahead, oh, I'm ready to take that exam now. So I'm going to click on that. And this is what it's going to show. And again, it's probably going to tell you that you need right here, download Respondus Lockdown Browser if you don't have it, already installed. You only have 1 attempt. It's out of 100 points. So, and I will show you here where you can find information. So if you scroll on down, you will find some stuff in your simple syllabus about Respondus. But where you're going to find most of it is going to be right here where it says Respondus Lockdown Browser and Monitor. And I probably need to open these up for you. Which I thought I did, but apparently I didn't yet. So I'll open them now. I'll make sure my other classes are that way too. So you'd want to click, right? Here's the introduction video. We will talk a little bit,
They
or
say
we will
good
watch
things
this
come
real
to
quick,
those who
I guess.
wait. Well, we don't buy it. At University of Phoenix, we're earning career.
If you're watching this, you're probably required to use Respondus Lockdown Browser for an online exam. Lockdown Browser is a different kind of browser. While taking an exam, you can't print, use other applications, visit other websites, you can't even search the internet for answers. I know, it takes all the fun out of online tests. But here's the good thing. Your classmates can't do those things either, so it's just your brain against their brain. A level playing field. Your instructor will provide a link for downloading and installing Lockdown Browser. When you start it, Lockdown Browser might warn you that certain applications have to be shut down before you continue, like screen capture programs, instant messaging, Skype, pretty much anything that lets you communicate with the outside world. You can close those applications yourself or let Lockdown Browser do it for you. The browser will then go to the login page for your online course. Log in like you normally do and locate the exam that requires Lockdown Browser. Remember, after the exam starts, you won't be able to do other things on your computer until you finish the exam. When you're done, just exit Lockdown Browser and you'll be all set. Your instructor might also require you to use a webcam with Lockdown Browser. This part is sometimes called Respondus Monitor, but just think of it as a webcam for Lockdown Browser. The nice thing about the webcam feature is that it lets you take exams from the comfort of your own home or from the other side of the world. Plus, you can take exams at any time of the day or night. The webcam will record what happens during the exam and the instructor can review it afterward. So, if an exam requires you to use Lockdown Browser and a webcam, just start Lockdown Browser and locate the exam. Before the exam starts, you'll be guided through a check to make sure your webcam is running properly. Additional steps might also be required by your instructor, such as showing your ID or taking a video of your surrounding area. Once the exam starts, don't give the webcam another thought. Just focus on that test you stayed up all night studying for. When the exam is finished and you submit it for grading, the webcam will shut off automatically. That's pretty much it. Now, take a deep breath and good luck.
So that's that one video. So let's move along over here. You will go here. This will show you how to download it for Chrome.
Installing Lockdown Browser on Chromebook. To install Lockdown Browser, start the Chrome browser on your Chromebook. Go to the unique download link provided by your school. You will be redirected to the Chrome Web Store, where you can add the extension to the Chrome browser. And that's it. You're now ready to take your exam in your school's LMS with the Lockdown Browser for Chromebook.
So again, if you're using a Chromebook, you need to download the right one for Chromebook. It's not going to work if you do a lot of mix and matching here. So they give you some information about Respondus for Windows. You want to go through and follow these steps. You know, there's a short video that talks a little bit more about that. If you're doing it with Mac, again, you want to follow these steps. There's a short video or a link. There's some information right here. There's a download to be able to access that. So again, what I'm saying is you don't want to if you have a Mac, you don't want to download the Chromebook version of your Respondus for Mac. It's not going to work. So you want to download the one for Mac, one for Windows. As I said, if you have some issues as it relates to the actual Respondus program or app, or if you need additional help, you need to click on this and go through this. Look at some of these hyperlinks. You got a LibGuide. If you need to, go to some of these Coastal Pines Technical Library in person campuses, libraries, testing centers for help, you want to go there. There's a student support link, respondent support. So there's some hyperlinks here that you can click that will get you the support that you need. The other thing that you probably want to kind of keep in mind is even though that most of these libraries will stay open to 6 and you roughly need an hour, I wouldn't, show up to a library at 5:30 and say, hey, I need to take a Respondus. Well, depending on the library, they're probably going to say, well, we close at 6, which only gives you 30 minutes. Well, I got an hour. Well, you should have probably started at 5. Because at 6, they're going to probably want to go home. And sometimes the library, the computer, and the internet just shuts off at 6:01. So, if you don't have your stuff saved or you can't type in 30 minutes to, that fast, you're going to lose your work and it's going to cost you a 0. So what I would suggest, if you need to go to the library to do this, I would do it before 5 o'clock. So you basically have 7:30 to 5, Monday through Thursday. That's not to say, if you get there a little bit after 5, can you still do it? Technically they're open at 6, but they're going to probably kick you out at 6 or tell you to wrap it up. So unless you can really type fast and make sense out of your typing, I wouldn't try to start this stuff after 5. The same thing is if you're doing this at home and you're waiting closer to the midterm date of December, what is it, October 13th, right? I wouldn't necessarily start this thing at 11:15 p.m. the night that this thing is due, because again, you're still going to run into that same problem unless you can type really fast. At 12 o'clock, if there's nothing there, it shuts down, disappears. I can't reopen it, and automatically, because there's nothing there, it's going to give you a 0. So I would watch that, right? Work smarter, not harder when it comes to that. Avoid a lot of heartache and damage to your grade. So that's where you'd find a lot of that information. And again, I need to make sure that that's open in most of my other classes too. So let me do that real quick. And if it's not, it will be now. So I will go ahead and make that stuff visible. So everybody on my, online courses are going to be able to see this. This is my hybrid class. This one's not my hybrid class. The hybrids, usually the in-person hybrid classes, they take this stuff. They do their midterm in class. They don't have to necessarily use the Respondus. It's just the ones that are 100% online that don't come to campus. are the ones that need to use it. So some of y'all might have already been familiar with this from another class or another semester. But I will go ahead and open everything up. Since we are getting closer to midterms. All right. I think that's everybody. Let me do 1102 class just to make sure. Because they're going to be doing a different type of a respondus. They're going to be doing theirs on some poetry that we're looking at. Yeah, theirs is open. Okay. The next thing that we're going to look at, and I know this is getting kind of lengthy, and what I may do is just sort of go over it and give you a chance to kind of work on it on your own. And if you email me, before the quiz is due, if you want some answers, and I got to see. Let's check to see when our quiz is actually due. You may have a little bit of time. I think it's due Sunday, I guess, the 28th. So if you want to email me, right, if you're going through this practice, and we may, like I said, do a couple of them, but I know this is getting to be about a 60-minute lecture video. But if you want to email me your practice, or if you want to ask, as it gets closer to Thursday, hey, can you email me the, answers to the practice for quiz 2, I will do that. But we will see. We might be able to go through some of this. So really the big thing that you probably may not be so familiar with is misplaced modifiers and dangling modifiers. You've probably heard of those in the past at some point, but maybe you haven't as well. So if you look, a misplaced modifier is a word, phrase, or clause that is in the wrong place in the sentence, so it makes the meaning confusing or silly. So if you look here, the fix is the answer is already pretty much there in the sentence. You just have to sort of move the modifier closer to the word it describes. So if you look at this particular example, she almost drove her kids to school every day. And it sounds, basically as the sentence is written, like she almost drove but didn't. So the correction really is moving almost. So sometimes you may see almost or nearly or barely or often in some of these words. Sometimes they're a little bit more of a challenge. So if we look at the correction, it says she drove her kids to school almost every day. So they just move that almost around. So usually with misplaced modifiers, the answer is there. You're just going to have to move the modifier closer to the word that it really describes. Dangling modifiers might be a little bit more of sometimes of a challenge because there you may have to take stuff out or add stuff in. Usually you need to add some sort of a subject pronoun, like a person, place, or a thing, to ensure that the subject's action is clear. So if you look here, a dangling modifier is a word or phrase at the start of the sentence that does not clearly refer to anything in the sentence. And they usually begin with this ing, present participle is usually what they're called. But you usually have an ing and then you'd have a comma. So if you look here, running to catch the bus, the backpack fell off her shoulders. Well, usually backpacks go on a person. That's why we have a she here, but it sounds like the backpack was running, which we know that can't be possible. So we use this her as a context clue. We need to add a female now to make the sentence really make sense. Running to catch the bus, comma, she dropped her book bag. So now that would work. And as you can tell, they shorten the sentence a little bit, but it still makes it's grammatically correct. It makes sense. There's no confusion. We don't have the backpack running. We don't have the bus trying to catch itself or anything like that. So when you look at examples 1 through 5, they're basically wanting you to find the misplaced modifier and moving it closer to the noun that it describes, or the modifier or the word that it describes. So there's a couple different ways you can approach that. Again, being that our time is running kind of low, I will kind of let you work on these on your own. And if you want to send me, hey, did I get these right? I can check them. Or if you want to work on it and just get get an answer key later in the week, email me about an answer key. I can do that. Same thing with the dangling modifier. Usually, you're just needing to add a subject. So, like for instance, while writing or while reading the book, the lights went out. Well, somebody has to do the reading, right? The lights didn't go out by themselves. The lights are, the book's not controlling the lights. The book's not reading itself. So we need to have a pronoun here. So in this case, I would just put I. While I was, right? You need a subject and a verb. While I was reading the book, comma, the lights went out. That's the quick fix. Driving to work, a deer ran across the road. Again, somebody was driving. It wasn't a deer that was driving. So you could say something like driving to work this morning, comma, a deer ran across the road. So that shouldn't be too big of a deal. I hope you did. Like I said, you're just going to have to add a subject pronoun and possibly a verb. You may have to change the sentence around a little bit. But for the most part, you want to double check anytime you begin a sentence with an ing type word. Because that's usually where you're going to have the problem. There's going to be a dangling modifier usually after that comma, because most of them have a comma in it. And where the dangling modifier happens or starts to happen is going to be right around in here. Because that's when you need to ask the question who or what's doing whatever they're doing in that sentence. Pronoun antecedent. So again, here's a little easier because they're giving you two choices and wanting you to pick one. So every student must bring his or her own lunch or their lunch. Now be careful because, again, if you look, student is singular, right? We're not dealing with plural students. So that's why it wouldn't be there. And student usually has two genders. There's a he and a she. So that's why you need to use his or her lunch. Similarly, if you look, number two, neither of the dogs wanted to eat blank their food or its food. Again, you want to be careful here. Dogs is not necessarily your subject, even though it is plural. We don't really necessarily know whether the dog is male or female at this point. But because it's an object of a preposition, meaning of, we can't use there. So neither of the dogs wanted to eat its food. Kind of keep it neutral, gender neutral. The team celebrated their victory or its victory. Again, a team, even though it's a group of individuals, is acting as one collective. It's a collective noun. So it's acting as one collective unit. So instead of saying their, it would be its. Because again, you want to kind of think gender neutral in this case. A team can be made up of males and females. Each of the teachers brought his or her favorite book or their favorite book. Again, if you go back to number two, we have the whole deal with each, but notice we have this object of a preposition. Teachers in this case, even though, again, just like dogs is plural, it's not necessarily the subject. Because like every and each, they usually have singular pronouns because a teacher can be both male and female. It wouldn't be there, it would be his or her. Now the student said he were ready for the test. It were ready for the test. They were ready for it. So here, because we have the plural, they would work best. Then we have just a pronoun case, and you want to choose the correct pronoun. Number three was kind of my mistake, so you don't have to worry about that because there's no way you're going to be able to answer that given I give you the two choices and the sentence is messed up. So, can they help me with this problem? Can them help me with this problem? So again, if you say these out loud, you can kind of hear it. So it would be they. The teacher called Tom and he. The teacher called Tom and him. So if you get rid of Tom and just replace Tom, the teacher called he doesn't make sense, right? The teacher called him, so that's why him would be going in there. The gift is for Maria and I. The gift is from Maria and me. Again, if you get rid of Maria, replace now the pronoun to see which one makes sense. The gift is from I or the gift is from me. So in this case, the me would work. And then between you and I think this plan will work. Between you and me, I think this case it would be the me, right? The next 5 is basically it's wanting you to kind of reduce and combine some of these pronoun antecedents to make more sense. So again, I give you some clues here: who was tired, who loved it, who needed help. So just like with the first 5, with the dangling and misplaced modifiers, if you want to sort of work through that a little bit yourself, and then email me for the answers, that's fine. Because I wanted to try to keep this particular video within the 60-minute time frame, and we're basically at that 60-minute time frame. As you can tell, I got several SA2s still left to grade. If you turn something in, you will have a grade on it. If you didn't turn something in, then you automatically got a grade on it, became a 0. If you did the Respondus verification, what I'm doing first, because there's still time for some folks to do that, I'm going ahead and grading SA2 proper. So when you look at it, unless I've already put it in your comment box that, hey, I did add, some, 5 points based on your Respondus verification, that's great. Otherwise, what I may do is I may go ahead and just grade all the essays and then go back and look to see who's actually did the first really extra credit with the Respondus, and then I'll go back and add those 5 points. So you have until October 1st, I think, with that extra credit Respondus. Be mindful to check your email on a regular basis and, your announcements and that type of stuff, because throughout the month of October, I will be adding or be sending out a couple more extra credit opportunities, which with a lot of this stuff is going to help, bolster that grade as we head into, the rest of October, beginning of November. The other thing is, as we get later in the semester, I will give everybody a chance to drop one thing, meaning it could be a peer review or it can be a quiz. It can't be a major essay, meaning I can't drop essay 1, 2, 3, or 4. That's part of your grade. But if it's a peer review or if it's a, quiz that you didn't do so well on, I can drop that grade. Now, if you already have something in mind that you want me to drop, you need to email me and let me know. Otherwise, I'm going to need to know something before we go to Thanksgiving break. I'll probably have this conversation again or send out an email about it. But if you want to go ahead and drop something, you're just going to have to email me and let me know now. And I will drop one thing. Now, once I drop that one thing, that's it, right? You're not going to have another opportunity to drop anything else. You're just going to have to keep your grades up, keep turning stuff in, and take advantage of the extra credit that I offer. Now, again, all this extra credit that I will be offering throughout the month of October and some of November probably is optional, meaning you don't have to do it if you don't want to do it, but don't come up to me December 1st and, well, can I have any extra credit, or, can I still turn in the extra credit? Because the extra credit is going to be time sensitive. I'm only going to have it open for, next amount of weeks, maybe. At some point, I have to close it and we have to move on, like the October 1st extra credit. So once that closes, whether you did the Respondus verification or not, then you just lost that, those 5 points I could have put on your SA2. Now, the next extra credit, I probably have 5 points going toward SA3, which would be your midterm. And then, go from there. There might be a couple, like I said, there's probably going to be at least probably at least 3 more extra credit opportunities, I think. So you're going to have the opportunity to get up nearly 20 extra credit points, and I'm splitting up. So at some point, you're probably going to have, if you did all four, where you'd have +5 bonus points to probably each one of your essays. So that should be helpful. All right. So until probably next week when we start talking about the punctuation for quiz 3. Unless you have any further questions or anything, please email me. Like I said, if you submitted an essay too, you will have something graded. It's kind of taking me a little bit because I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I have 6 classes and everybody had something due last week. So I'm going through the motions of trying to get grades caught up. I'm hoping you should. By the time midterm comes around, which would be October 13th, you should have your grades up to date by then. Now, again, if you're going ahead and doing quiz 2 and quiz 3, I may go through and go ahead and grade those just to make sure because they're a little easier to grade. They're not pages like essays. So you may have your quizzes graded before the essay too, and that's fine. I will try to keep the grades up that way. That way you kind of have an idea of what things look like as we head to the middle of October. But you should have, essay 2 graded by midterm, if not sooner. All right. Until next time, I hope everybody has a great week 6. I hope everybody has a great week 7. I will talk to you soon.